Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is December 11th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon. We got our next system knocking on our door, and a lot of this energy will be moving into Oregon and Northern California, spreading precipitation back up east of the mountains. Some cold air could be trapped. We could be looking at some snow or some light freezing rain for some areas. We'll dive into that in some detail, but our stronger storm system is out here northwest of the Hawaiian Islands, south of the Aleutian Islands. This will spin up off our coastal waters, bring an increase in the waves and the winds, and we're going to have some king tides ongoing at the same time. So we're probably going to have some coastal flooding issues also as we go through the upcoming weekend. Taking a look at where we are right now, look at Eugene at an eighth of a mile. Pretty chilly east of the mountains as well. You can see Ephrata at 32 degrees, Pendleton at 29, Seattle at 42. A bit more balmy there, and Olympia at a chilly 34, but you can see Spokane also below freezing. And some of this precipitation already looks like it's occurring across southwest Oregon. So we're watching for this. It doesn't take much to make things slick, and there is some chilly air trapped east of the mountains. More on that here in a moment. Looking at Seattle so far this month, some pretty chilly mornings here to start off the month, and freezing fog and whatnot, some frosty mornings, and one day with about 5,500 of an inch of rain, but we are well below normal so far for the month of December. We average 5.7. We are going to get some coming up here, but we'll take a look at the extended forecast as well a little bit later on today in the video. Now, looking towards Highway 12, I grabbed this random weather station. You can see this is Yakima. You can see everybody out here with one of the Tempest weather stations also. And if you go on into your station, you can see it builds a forecast for you, your own personalized forecast, stores all the data for you in the cloud. You can go back into your history, and it stores this again in the cloud as well for you. Like the wind is graphed for you, and you can see 60 miles per hour back there on December 8th. So yeah, very fun. It's got a lightning detection system, haptic rain gauge, makes a great Christmas gift. For the price, it is one of the best weather stations you can buy. Highly recommended. Click on the link down below to save 10% off. Now, looking at Spokane, National Weather Service, they're always on top of things, and they do mention Wednesday night through early Thursday, maybe a little bit of light snow trying to move northward. And of course, in the meantime, there is some areas that might be getting some fog and even some freezing fog, but we do get a bit more active here Thursday through Sunday as some mountain snows and maybe even a little lower elevation snowfall, which we'll be watching here over the next couple of days also. Now, Pendleton, Oregon has this out, the mixed precipitation tonight through Thursday morning. They do have this winter weather advisory, but it could even be outside of some of these areas. Some light snow could be falling, so there could be some slick spots out there. And now if we take a look at the North American model and we see the onset of the precipitation as we go through the day today and tonight, you can see some of that precipitation spreading across areas east, could be in the form of snow or some light freezing rain. And that's why they have the winter weather advisory up. West of the mountains, this will be rainfall, but once you get across the higher terrain, of course, you can be running into some of that snow. It shouldn't be overly heavy or anything with the initial system. And then we go through early Friday morning. That system will be moving out, and our deeper low starts to form off the coastline. Look at that 976, 975 beast off our coast. And there is going to be a robust pressure gradient with this, but things are looking a bit different. And I'll show you what I mean here in a moment. Looks like there might be some kind of secondary low formation a bit further south, which may keep this pressure gradient a little bit less than what it normally would be. But of course, this is going to be driving some big wave activity, some big winds, and lower pressure will help to exacerbate by increasing the sea level out there. If you have lower pressure, there is a bulge in the sea surface, and that could exacerbate some of these king tides. The highest tides of November, December, or January during the king tides are likely coming up this weekend, and so we could have some coastal flooding issues with this. Now, accumulated freezing rain, let me run through this here really quick. So again, this is going to be fairly select for some areas, and again, foothills of the Blue Mountains, things like that, but there could be some trapped here in some of the valleys here of the Cascades as well, so you want to watch out for that, especially near the Oregon-Washington border. And if we take a look at positive snow depth change, again, it might look nice, but, it doesn't take much to make things slick out there. And you can see kind of some snow flying as we go through the day today on in through the day Thursday. Now, I zoomed in on Pendleton, Oregon here because you can kind of see the timing as you go afternoon on Thursday. You can see a little bit of snow showing up on the North American model, some of the precipitation. It shows a little bit of accumulating snowfall as well, but temperatures are fairly marginal, right around freezing, maybe a hair above. But as precipitation is falling, you might be right around the freezing mark. And this is the Dalles here, again, showing up for some snow. I searched a couple other stations. There was a little bit of light freezing rain showing up at times, but you can see the timing on this Thursday morning for the Dalles, for example. Now, let's take a look at the next storm coming up here. This is the European on the left versus GFS. These are both hot off the presses, the 12Z runs. So this is the initial storm moving into Oregon and California, Southwest Oregon, California, bringing with it its precipitation. But then the stronger storm ramps up here as we go on in through Friday night into Saturday morning. But you can kind of see the double-barreled low look to it on the European, and a little bit elongated here on the GFS on the right as well. We're looking at 500 millibars, about 18,000 feet up in the atmosphere. So we're starting to get some agreement. You see it showing up here. So that's good news at least. Then if we scroll out a bit further in the future, we do have another strong low, probably a little bit further out, but that could be casting another frontal system as we go on in through maybe Sunday, and then on in through the day Monday there, and then who knows what's to come after that. We'll take a look at the extended forecast here in a couple minutes. But again, European left, GFS right. Initial precipitation moving in here again could start as some light snowfall for portions east of the mountains. Then the stronger storm arrives. Then you can see again a very deep low pressure center, 976 millibars. But again, kind of another low forming down here is not allowing the pressure gradient for places like the Oregon coast to be quite as robust as what it normally would be. And you can kind of see a little bit of that reflect. The GFS reflecting what the European is saying. I'm trying to come up with a better choice of words for that. But you can see a fairly robust wind maker here for Vancouver Island. And some of the Washington coast, you could be getting some gusts up over 50, and there'll be some strong winds probably across the northwest interior, the Salish Sea up the Strait of Georgia and whatnot. And you can see we're getting mountain snows all the way from the Sierra Nevada, up the Cascades, all the way into central BC here. So pretty widespread impact storm incoming here as we go through the weekend. And then as we scroll off in towards, what is this, about Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, the next storm system and next frontal system will be knocking on our door. We have plenty of time to worry about that though. Now I want to show you the North American model. This is also hot off the presses. There's the initial system there, and then the stronger storm arrives. And again, you can kind of see how the pressure gradient is not as tight across some of the Oregon coast and Northern California, and that affects the storm. I mean, if you had more of a wound-up storm here, you'd definitely be bringing stronger winds to the Oregon, the Washington coast, but that's still a very deep low, so I don't want to downplay it too much. And of course, we're going to be getting rain for the lower elevations west of the Cascades, some mountain snows, and again, the king tides could really be a problem with this lower pressure being around, some of the wind-driven waves, and yeah, this could be kind of interesting. I'll show you some more on that here, starting right now with the GFS, significant wave height. So as we go through the day Saturday, this is very late Friday night into Saturday morning, some big waves approaching the coastline. High tide is about, 10 a.m., I believe, between 10 and 11 a.m. for places like La Push, so we could have some coastal flooding issues. Probably going to get more updates on that as we go through the day tomorrow. I assume the National Weather Service will be calling attention to that. They did mention it in one of their discussions here recently, so we have to really watch that. And then on the European this morning as well, you can see we are going to get that bump in the wave action here as we go through the day Saturday also. So yeah, be watching that closely. And now this is where I talked about this a little bit yesterday. The average atmospheric pressure really for the planet is like 12.5 millibars. And for every for every millibar that you drop, that you would increase the sea level about 1 centimeter there. So if you're at 1015 and you went down to 985, for example, you'd be raising the level of the ocean by about a foot because of the lower pressure. And that's kind of what's associated with the storm surge, mostly associated with, of course, a tropical cyclone here. And then, of course, you get the wind. And then, of course, you got king tides on top of that. So if you have the lower pressure around, it can really, increase the sea level height. And then now showing you that sea level pressure, watch what happens as we go on in towards the weekend. This initial storm here, and in fact, let me back that up. What are we at here? We're about 1020 there for the Oregon coast, maybe 1021, 1022. But as we go, you can see you'd be dropping it down towards 1004. So that's about 18 millibars difference. So that's about 18 centimeters. So you're looking at that's almost like 7 inches, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on top of king tides, when the winds are roaring off the coastline, that can be a big difference here. Any additional water height there makes a big difference. And then we have this storm rolling in here as well. So you can kind of see the pressure dropping down towards maybe even under 1,000 millibars for some portions of the Washington coast. And even worse for Vancouver Island, you're dropping down to maybe 990. So you could really be having some beach erosion going on with those king tides. Hopefully that made sense and I didn't confuse you more. I felt like I was tripping over my words a little bit there, but Anyway, taking a look at Cape Disappointment. Here we go at the high tides. 11 a.m. on Saturday for Cape Disappointment. 11:52 on Sunday. Again, these are probably the highest tides of the king tide season. They happen in November, December, and January. And from what I was looking at, these are going to be the highest tides of the season. And this correlates very closely to the strong winds and the big waves approaching the coastline there. So Saturday could be quite the show on some of the Washington coast, but you'd have to be very careful if you're in and around the surf zone and whatnot. And even Cape Disappointment on days like this can have those logs start to move and get pushed up on to the parking lot. So if you head out there, you might not even be able to get out there in the normal wave watching area because the logs will be moving around most likely. Now looking at La Push, something similar there as well. Saturday, 10.7, likely the highest tides of the year. That's about 10:42 a.m. And again, the storm is going to be very close. Strong winds, big waves will be rolling in during this peak king tide. This is kind of interesting here, folks. I mean, even just the king tides themselves can cause problems. That you bring lower pressure and some strong winds and the big waves in there, and it can get really wild on the coastline. So we have backed off with some of the wind speeds here, but this is this morning's European model. You can see Seattle, that is absolutely nothing to write home about. This is not a big windstorm for the Willamette Valley or the Puget Sound. We're not looking at a huge east wind event or anything like that. Put your mind to rest. You could get some gusty winds initially out of the east, but it's nothing like what happened on November 19th with our huge east big bomb cyclone that everybody knows about. But we do have these strong winds, and you can see gusting up towards 50 miles an hour on some of the coastal areas as well. Stronger for Vancouver Island. And again, this is still subject to change, so you're going to want to check back tomorrow on my daily forecast. Just, stick with things because every day we get more information here. You don't just ever take a forecast and go with it for the next few days. You got to be checking every single day. Looking at the GFS, shows a bit stronger here for some of the coastal areas. But again, look at Seattle, Portland. We are not looking at any kind of big winds here for the interior. Maybe the northwest interior, some gusty winds, possibly up towards 45, 50, and maybe the Strait of Georgia. And the coastal areas, definitely windy also. Now, let's take a look at the extended forecast. European artificial intelligence on the left versus GFS on the right. There's our initial storm system. Pretty good model agreement in the short term, of course. And then our stronger low arrives. And the European, as of last night, I mean, look at that, 972 milliwires. The GFS at 970. Getting close to Vancouver Island there. And then again, you can kind of see some model agreement. We're getting that strong storm rolling up there. And again, that's right about 10 a.m. on Saturday. That's when the king tides are at their highest. So that's going to be kind of crazy there on the coastline there. That'll be interesting watching this over the next couple of days to see when we're going to fine tune this forecast. Then another storm system looks like it's moving through as we go through the day Monday. And then something starts to happen here. You notice the artificial intelligence wants to build this ridge. It's still throwing this system, weaker system up here towards Haida Gwaii. The GFS not as robust with the ridging versus the artificial intelligence. And then if we scroll into the future, we've got a system coming here on the GFS when the European artificial intelligence wants nothing to do with that. And it's showing just ridging, kind of a cutoff low. Then the GFS also hints at some kind of a cutoff low dropping down here as well. And then some more extensive ridging as we get off towards Christmas. So we'll watch for that here because there is some hinting at this ridging as we go up in towards the Christmas time period here. And that can bring some of its own interesting weather as well. And maybe sometimes when you get these patterns and big ridges and high pressure set up over the interior areas and you bring deep lows up the coastline, you can get additional interesting wind events or whatnot, or you can get some really stagnant, foggy conditions here across the region, depending on how things set up. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's way off into the extended forecast. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're just kind of looking at that ridging signal off in through the extended avalanche forecast right now, low across the region. And we do have a marginal risk for some excessive rainfall. And there's actually day 4 that covers similar areas here as well. And if we take a look at that rainfall, I'm going to scroll through this fairly fast. There's the initial system. We're looking at 24-hour total. So that is the initial system there. Brings some light rain up across Seattle. Better amounts the further you go south, but then the next strong storm arrives here, and you can see the bulk of that moisture moving into southwest Oregon. That's why they have that excessive rainfall outlook up, but also some decent amounts across the Olympics, some of the Cascades, BC, Vancouver Island, as that system rolls through, and then maybe additional systems after that, but we'll worry about that in upcoming days. Here's the 6 to 10 day. above average precipitation across a lot of the Northwest, 8 to 14 days, something similar to this there as well. But again, we're going to kind of be on that cutoff. You saw some of the storm systems were moving around out there, but some of them may start to move far enough off the coastline here where it amplifies ridging over the region. And again, we'll see how that develops. But anyway, I'll try to wrap this video up now. I hope you guys are having a good day. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.